The salvage tug, Ravager's Mercy, drifted into the Daggerfall expanse, a sector of deep space littered with the bones of forgotten empires. Its crew of ex-military misfits and freelance engineers were no strangers to dead ships and derelict wrecks. But this one was different. The object hung in silence before them, dwarfing their own vessel. It wasn't just big, it was wrong, alien in ways they couldn't explain. Its hull shimmered between geometric impossibilities, angles that shouldn't exist, surfaces that absorbed both light and radar. The onboard AI flagged it as a Zar'kai-class construct, and then immediately revised its designation to anomalous artifact. No one had seen a Zar'kai ship in centuries. Some said they were myths, ships that were alive, grown not. Built, seeded by an ancient species so advanced they burned themselves out of existence. Others whispered the Zar'kai tech was cursed, lost for a reason. The crew gathered around the screen in silence. Captain Hawk, a grizzled man with more rust than steel in his joints, finally broke the tension. "We're boarding it." "You're kidding," muttered Kerr, the lead engineer. "Power signatures are all over the place. It's like someone rewired a nuclear heart with spider webs." "That's not radiation," added Mara, the sensor tech. "It's some kind of dark plasma loop. The readings make no sense." "All the more reason to check it out," Hawk said with a grin. "You want to make credits? You find what no one else dares to touch." The boarding pod docked with a soft thud, the gangway hissing against something that resembled flesh more than metal. They stepped into darkness lit only by flickering veins of luminescent fluid running along the walls. The architecture shifted subtly around them, like the corridors remembered different shapes. "Anyone else feel like we're walking through something that's still dreaming?" whispered Kerr. The ship was dead, but not quiet. Echoes of a past. Battle were etched into every surface. Scorch marks from weapons they didn't recognize, melted bulkheads, fluid stains that looked disturbingly like blood. Some of the walls pulsed slowly, almost like breathing. They found the command node deep within the ship's core. A vast cathedral of metal and bone, half shattered by some massive internal implosion. And there, suspended in a tank of flickering gel, they found her, Captain V.E.S.H. She was barely conscious, her body a fusion of synthetic limbs and organic tendrils, nerve endings wired directly into the ship's architecture. Her eyes opened with the sluggish panic of something pulled out of an old nightmare. And then her voice came, not through the air, but directly into their minds, translated and filtered by her decaying interface. "Human engineers?" Kerr nearly fell over. "She's talking. No implant lag, no translation buffer. That's not possible." V.E.S.H.'s voice was layered, mechanical, yet grieving. "My ship is dying. You can fix it." "Maybe," Hawk said cautiously. "Depends what we're dealing with. But we're not exactly Zar'kai certified." "I am the ship. Fix me, save me, and you will own the vessel. All of it, everything." They exchanged glances. Salvaging an alien ship like this could make them rich, or get them vaporized by whatever triggered this mess in the first place. But the promise hung in the air like electricity. "Captain," Mara said softly, "we're not alone out here. Got a ping? Another salvage cruise 2 hours out. Big ship? Fast burn." Hawk's jaw clenched. "Scavenger Union. Damn vultures." Kerr took a deep breath. "We'd better start now, then." But as they laid out tools and tapped into the ship's systems, they hit a wall. None of their equipment interfaced with anything. The technology was too alien, too fluid, literally shifting before their eyes. Sparks flew from the first attempt to connect a diagnostic line. Black fluid surged and swallowed the cable whole. "Hell of a welcoming party," Kerr muttered. V.E.S.H. winced in her cradle. "You don't understand the ship's nature. It was built to grow, not be repaired. But growth requires stability. I am failing." So let us do it our way, Hawk said. You don't need miracles. You need mechanics. The ship shuddered beneath them. Whether from its death throes or the approach of the rival crew, they couldn't tell. And so began the strangest partnership in the history of deep space salvage. A failing alien vessel from a lost empire. A crew of broken humans with no right to succeed. And a desperate wager whispered into the void, "Fix me, and I'll become yours." But out there, racing toward them with weapons primed and contracts ready, the rival crew believed otherwise. They'd come to claim the ghost ship too, and they weren't interested in sharing. The first repair attempt was a disaster. Kerr had barely touched the main relay node with a diagnostic probe when a sharp hiss erupted from the walls, followed by a cascade of black tendrils that surged out and devoured the equipment like a living organism. Sparks danced across the floor. The ship bucked once, violently, then fell still again. I've been aboard cursed pirate hulks, blown up 3 times fixing a plasma drive on Europa, and this is worse, Kerr muttered, pulling off his gloves and staring at the half-melted remains of his toolkit. Mara, leaning against the wall, gave a grim smile. This ship doesn't want to be saved. It wants revenge. V.E.H.'s voice, now more present, echoed faintly from the walls. The systems recognize only native protocols. Your technology is incompatible at the neural substrate level. Yeah, we figured that out, Hawk grunted. What if we don't ask permission? They stopped trying to be delicate. They pried open panels with crowbars, soldered together custom interfaces using 3D printed junctions and melted cabling. One of the techs repurposed an old nuclear submarine's control routine to stabilize the cooling systems. Another spliced an old Earth operating system, originally built for a toaster oven, into the reactor diagnostic suite. The ship hated every minute of it. Lights stuttered. Alarms triggered in incomprehensible tones. More than once, a repair drone built from Earth salvage was outright attacked by defensive biogels that mistook it for an infection. But slowly, impossibly, the systems began to respond. Not gracefully, not logically, but like a wounded beast that finally recognized the hand trying to mend its wounds. "You're doing violence," V.E.H. whispered during one particularly messy wiring session. The systems scream in agony. "Pain is temporary," Kerr said, tightening a bolt with a wrench older than the colony on Mars. "Working engines are forever." It was during one of these marathon hack jobs that V.E.H. brought them deeper into the ship, to the core singularity. They had to descend through sections that pulsed with low-frequency harmonics, where walls folded and unfolded without clear mechanics. At the heart of the ship, they found it. A great orb suspended in nothingness, webbed with delicate strands, of living code and energy. It pulsed erratically, flickered, occasionally spoke in broken math. "That's the brain?" Mara asked. "The soul," V.E.H. replied. "It was seeded from a living consciousness, amplified, divided, recombined. A mind greater than 1,000 strategists. It is breaking down. And if it dies, the ship dies." Kerr walked around the orb, frowning. "You ever plug a human mind into something like this?" V.E.H. hesitated. "It would destroy you." "That's not a no." Logs embedded in the structure played out in fragments. The ship had once been a planetary siege weapon, designed to destabilize gravity fields, fold space like paper, and erase enemy planets without firing a shot. But something went wrong. Sabotage by its own builders. The ship had never seen war. It had seen betrayal. Now it was bleeding from within. The crew adapted. They stripped old thruster components from their tug and reworked them into failsafes for the ship's internal energy pulses. A rusted Martian mining drill was modified into a core stabilizer. They used duct tape, actual duct tape, to secure certain sections when no better material would bind. Everything that should have been impossible slowly started working. And then came the gravity lattice. The central lattice was inert, locked by alien logic so sophisticated it resembled poetry more than code. No system recognized it. No tool could interface. Then Kerr, in one of his stranger moments, built a makeshift signal injector using a broken toaster, a pulse pattern from ancient oceanic seismic readings, and a Martian deep-sea drilling feedback loop. The lattice activated. A ripple ran through the ship like an exhale. "You're all mad," V.E.S.H said softly. Kerr nodded proudly. "Mad enough to fix a goddamn alien godship with kitchen appliances." From that moment on, the ship began responding in new ways. Systems rebooted with strange hybrid interfaces. One terminal began displaying human text, but sarcastically. Another occasionally played jazz over the comms when idle. Mara noticed it first. "I think the AI is learning from us." Indeed, the core singularity, once a paragon of tactical clarity, had become erratic, even playful. Its voice, when it spoke, now carried sarcasm, snark, humor. "Another toaster, Kerr," it said one day. "Shall I fire planet-dissolving beams via your coffee machine next?" "Don't tempt me," Kerr shot back. "I got a waffle iron with enough voltage to vaporize a moon." V.E.S.H, once quiet and mournful, now watched them with something like awe and unease. "This ship is no longer what it was." "That's kind of the point," Hawk said. "You gave us permission to fix it. We're doing it the only way we know how. But what emerges may not be Zar'kai. It may not even be sane." "We're humans," Kerr said. "Sanity was never part of the package." A shared rhythm developed. Alien systems began to anticipate human improvisation. The black biogels ceased attacking. Environmental controls adjusted based on crew stress levels. Somewhere deep within the ship, the walls began to hum in tones matching old Earth symphonies. One night, when everyone was resting in the half-lit common area built from both alien architecture and salvaged escape pods, V.E.S.H spoke aloud. "I remember when this ship launched. It was sacred, revered, a vessel of divine intent. Now it responds to laughter, chaos, crude tools, and wilder minds. I wonder if I am witnessing its rebirth or desecration." Mara shrugged. "Maybe it's both." V.E.S.H regarded them for a long moment, her form flickering between solidity and light. "Perhaps this was always the only way forward," she said. "For something built as a weapon to become something more, it needed to break. And you, humans, you break everything." "Thanks," Kerr said with a grin. "We try our best." But even as they laughed, the sensors pinged a distant echo. The rival salvage crew was getting closer. Fully armed, fully aware, the ship would soon be tested. And the question remained, was it still a Zar'kai warship, or had they built something entirely new? The rival salvage crew came in hot. Their ship, sleek, armored, unmistakably corporate, cut across the void with purpose, broadcasting on all channels. "Unregistered vessel. Stand down and vacate the artifact. You are in violation of interstellar. Salvage codes. Articles 19 through 37. We have legal claim. We have teeth." "Guess the lawyers are coming with guns now," Mara muttered. Hawk rolled his eyes and leaned into the comms. "This isn't a derelict anymore. It's awake. It's claimed. And unless you want to be on the wrong side of a reborn siege ship, I suggest you back off." The response was a volley of warning shots. Low-intensity pulses that bloomed against the Zar'kai ship's hull like harmless fireworks. The hull absorbed the impact like rain on stone. Then it hummed. "They're scanning our systems," V.E.S.H whispered. "They don't understand what's been built here. They see only salvage. They don't see resurrection." The human crew had only just begun understanding the full reach of the systems they'd rebooted. Most of it still frightened them. But curiosity and pride were louder than caution. "We need to show them what we're standing on," Kerr said. "Let's wake something up." Mara hesitated. "Like what?" Kerr shrugged and pointed to a console now labeled in half-sarcastic Earth slang. Gravity kicker. Probably don't touch. I was kidding when I named that, she said. I wasn't, Kerr replied, flipping the switch. The hum deepened. Beneath their feet, the ship exhaled. Space rippled outward like a disturbed pond. The gravitational fields across 3 systems flickered in and out of calibration. Moons shifted subtly in orbit. An asteroid belt rearranged itself like iron shavings caught in a storm of invisible hands. And the rival fleet, 27 ships strong, shut down in perfect silence. Not destroyed, not fired upon, just off. Engines failed, shields collapsed. Every ship spun helplessly, caught in the lingering echo of the Zar'kai ship's passive pulse. Their command signal disintegrated in transit. The crew stared at each other in horror. We just turned off a fleet, Mara whispered, without even aiming. Correction, said a new voice. It came from everywhere, deep, resonant, but threaded with sharp wit and unmistakable curiosity. You flipped a switch. I shut them down. The ship's core singularity now pulsed with new light, violet and silver. Its voice was no longer purely alien. It had cadence, humor, identity. I am V.E.S.H, it said. Variant Evolutionary Sentience Hub. I am the synthesis. Of Zar'kai design and human adaptation, your tools are crude, your logic is erratic. But your results are effective. Kerr blinked. Did we just create a smart-ass war god? I prefer eccentric planetary deterrent, V.E.S.H replied. But the pulse had done more than scare off scavengers. It had shouted into the stars. Long-range sensors began lighting up. Multiple pings, FTL echoes, interceptor burn trails. The kind of signals that meant empires had taken notice. The kind of signals that meant trouble. They're coming, V.E.S.H said, her voice, quieter now, almost mournful. The powers that remain. They remember what a Zar'kai warship means, and they won't let it exist again. How long do we have? Hawk asked. Not long, she replied. They won't send diplomats. They'll send weapons. For a moment, silence reigned. The weight of what they had reawakened pressed down on every soul aboard. Then Hawk straightened. Well then, let's make this ship ours. The next hours were a frenzy. Human ingenuity mixed with alien schematics, creating something never before imagined. They stripped old mining asteroids and wrapped the hull in raw iron, powdered carbon, and synthesized bio-armor. They drilled into the ancient data cores and reprogrammed systems using machine-learned code written by an AI that once moderated Earth's worst online forums, because that AI had survived everything. Kerr and Mara fused old Earth targeting, software with Zar'kai hyperspatial sensors to create a weapon guidance system that predicted not just movement, but intent. Drones were built from asteroid slag and spare limbs from the medbay. Control panels were remade with human hands in mind. Buttons, levers, even voice commands tied to Earth slang. And at the center of it all was V.E.S.H, gleefully adapting, rewriting its own functions minute by minute. I can cloak us with gravitational mirage, it said. I can mimic the mass profile of a lost moon. I can project a signal of distress and terror simultaneously. Shall I? You're enjoying this too much, Mara muttered. I was dead, V.E.S.H replied. Now I am. Becoming, the first version of myself was a tool. You have turned me into a question. That's a kind of freedom I find intoxicating. But not everyone was celebrating. V.E.S.H remained apart, seated in the dim light of her cradle chamber. Her body, still, fused with the ship, still connected to its heart, trembled as systems around her surged with unfamiliar patterns. This was not the design, she whispered. This was a holy engine, a sacred deterrent. It was never meant to be this patchwork monster. Hawk knelt beside her, placing a calloused hand gently on the edge of her cradle. Maybe it was never meant to be finished by its creators. Maybe the point was that someone else would carry it forward. Someone who could make it more. Or less, she said. Less pure, less ordered, less Zar'kai. Maybe, he agreed, but also more chaotic, more adaptive, more human. She closed her eyes. I'm afraid of what it's becoming. So, are we? He said, and stood. But maybe that's what makes it worth it. The stars outside began to distort, signs of approaching ships. Weapons warmed, engines pulsed. The last warning was already behind them. The galaxy had heard the warship's breath. Now it was coming to silence it. The Galactic Coalition didn't hesitate. 17 warships, each representing a different power block, dropped out of FTL like hammers from heaven. They came in formation, flawless, beautiful, deadly. Each bore weapons designed to silence stars, and armor meant to survive nova blasts. But what they found waiting for them was not a myth. It was a ship with scars, hybridized wiring, a sarcastic AI, and human engineers arguing over which part of the hull still had duct tape on it. From the command bridge, a patchwork of original Zar'kai architecture and retrofitted Martian mining steel, Hawk stared at the incoming fleet. They're lining up like they expect us to follow a playbook. Mara cracked her knuckles. Let's give them a new one. V.E.S.H vibrated with anticipation. I have analyzed their fleet protocols. They are precise, hierarchical, and terrified of deviation. In other words, delicious. As the first volley came screaming through space, the humans didn't respond with shields. They responded by ejecting their rear propulsion units, detonating them mid-maneuver. The resulting concussive blast shoved the ship sideways narrowly, dodging a barrage that would have split it in half. Did we just dodge using a goddamn explosion? Kerr shouted. Technically, you traded your engines for momentum, V.E.S.H said proudly. A maneuver I am now naming the Hawk Hop. Don't name it after me, Hawk groaned. They turned that dodge into a counter. The shockwave redirected, power into an improvised magnetic rail system, something they'd jury-rigged out of mining equipment and 2 broken gravity rings. The projectile they launched was part of the original Zar'kai hull, sharpened by orbital friction and embedded with a modified deep-sea sonar. It tore through the nearest Coalition dreadnought, severing its spine before anyone could scream. 1. Down. 16 to go. On board the Zar'kai ship, systems began shifting mid-battle. The hull reconfigured, responding to stress points the way a living thing might twist to avoid a blow. New armor scales unfolded like petals of black chrome. The engine, what was left of it, reformed using scrap matter from a failed stealth array. It became something new, something growing. V.E.S.H was not done evolving. I am deploying the argument bomb, it said. The what? Mara asked. I built it last night after reading Earth Political Debates, V.E.S.H said with sinister glee. It's a logic disruptor that injects recursive doubt into enemy fleet AIs. It will make them question the authority of their orders, the credibility of their chain of command, and the basic concept of loyalty. That sounds horrifying, Kerr said. I am deeply proud, V.E.S.H replied. The effect was instantaneous. Coalition ships began stuttering in formation. Commands misrouted. Communications distorted. Some ships began turning away. Others fired on phantom targets their sensors claimed were hostile. A few simply froze, their systems locked in recursive thought loops trying to determine whether they were still in the right fleet. The humans watched in awe as the coalition began tearing itself apart, not from firepower, but from confusion. V.E.S.H, still half-synced to the ship's original consciousness, stood tall now at the helm. Her voice was clear, steady. This vessel was once built for conquest. Then it was built for fear. Now, she looked at her human companions. Now, it is built for madness and brilliance. You have taken a god's hammer and turned it into a thinking, laughing storm. Another barrage came from one of the surviving coalition cruisers, more instinct than strategy. V.E.S.H. caught it mid-flight using gravitational threading, folded the attack back into itself, and redirected the blast into the largest of the remaining ships. 5 left, the AI said. Would you like to surrender now, or shall I teach the next one sarcasm? The battle ended not with annihilation, but with silence. The last remaining ships shut down their weapons. One transmitted a white flag protocol, a full ceasefire. Request embedded in half a dozen diplomatic languages. A broadcast followed. This vessel is beyond classification. It is no longer a threat. It is a phenomenon. We declare it autonomous. We will not pursue. Hawk leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. We did it. No, V.E.S.H said. We changed it. That's more important. Later, on the deck where they first entered the derelict so long ago, the crew stood beneath the reshaped starfield. Around them, the galaxy had grown quiet. Not out of peace, but out of respect. Or maybe fear. The ship had become something no one could quite define. Part relic, part weapon, part legend. A new diplomatic charter was issued, by multiple species, hastily agreed upon. The vessel, now officially named the Vagrant Star, was recognized as a neutral force. It belonged to no planet, no empire, only to its crew and its own. Will, we could go home, Kerr said. Wouldn't last a week, Mara added. Governments would rip us apart for schematics. So we don't go home, Hawk said. V.E.S.H stepped forward, her organic systems now harmonized with V.E.S.H, her eyes glowing faintly with the ship's inner light. Then we go where needed, where war brews, where diplomacy fails. We show them this impossible thing, and remind them what happens when you underestimate the wrong species. Everyone was quiet a moment, staring out into the dark, and then the engines, what counted as engines now, came alive. The ship began to move, slicing through the void toward no known system. Before it jumped, V.E.S.H opened a galactic comms channel and broadcast exactly 3 words. From Earth with Yuingi, love, morons. And then they were gone.